Hi, folks. Welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. And Tom Ridge will join us in the next segment, the former Homeland Security Secretary. And we're going to talk about Iran and the threat that Iran poses to our national security. But first, there's a poll out, and it's a Rasmussen poll. And it shows that voters now see a more divided nation than 4 years ago. I'd like to know how that's possible, since Barack Obama was supposed to be the great uniter. Also, Republicans are much more enthusiastic about coming out to vote in 2014, which is the elections coming up in November. 67% of likely U.S. voters, 67, that's two-thirds, just right up two-thirds, say America is more divided than it was 4 years ago. And we also have the fact that among voters who see more division or about the same of it, 35% believe that Barack Obama is to blame. 34% point the finger at Republicans. 23% say both are to blame. So here you got an overwhelming majority of Americans claiming that the country is more divided. That same amount, interestingly enough, just about 67%, has said in two other polls that the next presidential candidate has to have significantly different policies to run on in order to get elected. So, and of course, the constant numbers that the country is headed in the wrong direction. Now, CNN today was touting the fact that, whoa, you know, all this supposed Katrina moment that Obama had by not going to the border, it really hasn't affected his poll numbers much because they went from approval rating of 43 before all of that to 42%. So, hey, you know, much ado about nothing. That's the CNN poll. And by the way, I'd like to know how many participants were in that poll so we could tell the gals at The View and they could put their stamp of approval, because you recall I did a Gimme 5 where they were lamenting the fact that one of the polls that they were discussing, they didn't believe the results. They weren't happy with it because they said that, oh yeah, this was, I don't remember what it was about, but only 500 people, no, only 1,400 people were polled. And for a poll, that's quite a lot, okay? But, you know, the women at The View, sometimes they don't understand that. They probably think, you know, most polls are 50 or 60,000 people, which, of course, it's more like 500 to 1,000 usually. But that's beside the point. Anyway, so, you know, bad numbers. Nobody wants to see a divided country. Nobody wants to see a country where people think you're headed in the wrong direction. Nobody wants to see a country where they pinpoint the President of the United States as being the divisive one and dividing the country. We would have loved to have seen a man who could have united us. We would have loved to have seen the man who said, there is no red, there is no blue, there's only purple. But when that man says, I will not negotiate, when that man says, you know, Republicans are your enemy to Hispanic voters, and the cops acted stupidly, and right on down the line, I'll bring a gun to a knife fight. You know, it's just not going to happen that man is going to be the great uniter. It's just not going to happen. All right, folks, we'll be back with former Homeland Security Director Tom Ridge and more of the show, but here's Dr. Chauncey Crandall with some tips for lowering your blood pressure.
Hello, I'm back this week with this very important question. Is your doctor taking your blood pressure correctly? You may assume so, but a new study shows you may be wrong. According to this new research, doctors often cut corners when taking blood pressure and record readings that may be much too high. This is important information. First, if your blood pressure reading is wrong, you could be misdiagnosed with high blood pressure and put on powerful drugs for the rest of your life. You could also be denied health insurance, and your job may even be put in jeopardy. This is important information, so pay close attention. Number one, is your doctor using the right size blood pressure cuff? Cuffs come in two different sizes, average and large, but too often only the average size cuff is even used, even on the person with a larger forearm. If the cuff is too tight, the reading will be too high. Number two, is your blood pressure taken in both of your arms? Doctors are taught that this is not mandatory, but it should be. Even a small difference between the two pressure readings can mean you are at great risk of suffering from a stroke or even dying of heart disease. And number three, Is your blood pressure taken when you are seated on the examining table with your legs dangling in the air? If so, your reading may be 10 points too high. You should be seated in the chair with your feet on the floor and your legs apart and relaxed. Don't cross your legs at either the knees or the ankles. Remember, if your doctor doesn't take your blood pressure the correct way, you could be putting your health at risk. Many of you already have my book, The Simple Heart Cure. So if you do, you can read all about high blood pressure in Chapter 8. That's my health tip for this week. I'll see you next week with another important Heart Health Minute.
Get your copy of Dr. Crandall's best-selling book, The Simple Heart Cure, for just $4.95 with this special offer. Go to www.simpleheartbook.com to get your copy today. That's simpleheartbook.com.